The family of Nolan Xavier Wells is demanding a transparent investigation into his death. The 18-year-old went missing over the July 4th holiday weekend. After taking a boat trip with friends, his body was found on Monday. The Jackson County Sheriff has asked for any witnesses or people with video to come forward, as there are a lot of questions, you probably have a lot of them, about his death. His family has hired civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who has raised questions about what he says are conflicting accounts from friends who last saw Wells and messages Wells' family say were deleted from his phone. He also has raised questions about whether race played a component in the investigation. At a news conference just yesterday, Wells' mother made a plea for more information.
I would hope that any parent who, God forbid, would be in our situation, I would hope that you would do the same thing. I would hope that you would ask for any help, receive any help to get answers, because at the end of the day, that's all we want. We just want to know. We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home.
Joining us now, our MS Now reporter Maya Eaglin and the Reverend Al Sharpton, host of MS Now's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network. You could see him behind Wells' mother there in that video. Maya, I want to start with you. There are so many questions in this story. There's a timeline that we have, and we want to put it up for folks. On July 3rd, mother says he made the family dinner before leaving.
Yep.
July 4th, videos of Nolan on boats with friends. Witness accounts claim Nolan decided to stay on Horn Island without his phone. That's what his friends say. Evening of July 4th, Nolan reported missing. Family says location of his phone and car keys conflict with witness accounts. July 5th, family and community members searched for Nolan around Horn Island by boat. State officials also searched. On July 6th, his body was found near Horn Island. Can you help us fill in the blanks, and what questions do we have answers to at this point?
Yeah, a lot of questions. Remember, this is an 18-year-old teenager, right? His family says he was loving. He brought a lot of humor to his community. Horn Island is only accessible by boat. So this, apparently, according to his mother and family, was a group trip that was planned for him and his friends to take to celebrate the July 4th holiday. Once he got to the island, we're hearing witnesses say Nolan decided to stay there and possibly arrange some other way to get home. That's really what the parents are confused about. They're saying that's really unlike his son. They're saying it's confusing as to why his phone and his car keys weren't with him on that island if he really did stay. And there's a lot of questions here. There's another graphic I want to pull up for people. Why did he not return with his friends? How did he die? Right? That is the big one. Where were his phones and keys? So the family is now conducting an independent autopsy, and they're asking the public for more video, any information. Again, there's no clear motive here. It's all still ongoing, but it's on a lot of painful historical context of things that we've seen in this country.
Has there been any initial autopsy done yet, or any conclusion about cause of death?
We know that the local police department has conducted an autopsy. That has not been released yet, and we don't know the timeline on when they are going to release that. So the family is conducting their own separate one, and maybe we'll get that one a little bit sooner, but it's unclear right now.
Rev, let's bring you in here into the conversation to pick up on a fact here that Maya brought up. There are some painful historical not so much parallels as much for every African American in this country. When they heard the story of what happened to Nolan Wells, a chill went through them. Talk more about why this death of Nolan Wells is resonating so broadly and so loudly for Black families around this country.
Well, given the history of Mississippi, and given the unknown aspects of what happened to Nolan, it certainly brings back some of the worst fears we've had, not only in history, but in recent times. That does not mean that this will go either way. I think the reason that National Action Network and I got involved is to make sure the family gets all the support it needs to find out what it is. They've said that we're not saying it's race, but we're not saying it wasn't race. And it could be race at two levels. One, it could be at the actual trip. Two, it could be the investigators that are law enforcement in Mississippi, which a lot more people have a lot of concern about. So when the family and Attorney Ben Crump came to me in the press conference yesterday was at National Action Network's headquarters, it was to raise the concerns. It's one black young man, 18 years old, with three young whites. They ended up back saying that he wanted to stay, yet one of them had his cell phone, one of them had his car keys. It just does not add up. Mm-hmm. And we're saying that we intend to be present and keep the efforts forward to help this family until they can find out some reasonable way. The one thing we know, this young man is dead, and three young men with him is not. They possessed his keys and his cell phone. His mother also raised, why was all of his things, his text messages, his photos and all erased from his cell phone? So there's a lot of concern here. And I think that as people tell the black community, don't jump to conclusion, we could also say the other side shouldn't jump to conclusions. Let's get this objectively done. So we're going to be involved. Tyler Perry has said he wants to pay for the funeral. Colin Kaepernick paid for the new autopsy. And National Action Network is going to stand with this family.
You know, the family deserves some answers here. One question that I have, and I think a lot of people have, is one of the mothers, I think, or at least what the kid said, that he stayed behind to hang out with a girl. Do we know who this girl is? Is there any evidence of a girl that he was hanging out with and talking to? Because that's the problem with the questions that are being raised, is that the answers seem to not exist.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of conflicting reports, too, of what's being said online, what police have released, and what the family themselves have been able to find out. I heard yesterday, Christine, the mother, said they haven't had any direct conversations with many of his friends who were a part of that day, right? So there's still so many lingering questions. I will say the sheriff did put out a statement. At first, they said this is an ongoing investigation. They do not suspect foul play. That statement alone, before the investigation has finished, is what Christine and Nolan's father have said is very confusing to them. And so the Jackson County Sheriff's Department says, we recognize that a significant amount of information, speculation, and commentary has been shared on social media and throughout the community. As with any active investigation, our investigators are working to establish the facts through eyewitness accounts, physical evidence, and other reliable information. So a lot of question marks here.
A lot of question marks. But let me get you on one more question that I hand wrote during the interview for people to understand. Because as you said at the beginning of this interview, Horn Island is only accessible by boat.
Yep.
How far is Horn Island away from the mainland?
To my understanding, it's a few miles. I want to say between 7 and 10 is what I remember reading as I was doing research. So you can't swim off of this island, not a regular person, maybe a super athlete. But yeah, it was only by boat. Nolan's dad said if he had a boat himself, he would have gone out the night they reported him missing. But they didn't have access to a boat. And so that was another resource that was missing for this investigation.
Well, Maya Egelin, Reverend Al Sharpton, thank you both very much for coming to the weekend.